Here's to whiskey kisses, the peachy taste of sin.
Greetings, or rather season's greetings, Whisky folk. Welcome back to Drinking Out Loud for a very special series of videos that kind of lead us all the way up to Christmas Day. Now, it's been a very busy fall here, and it's going to be a very busy winter here at the Strath, and I've not been able to do as many videos as I'd like to, but I am forcing myself, I am making time to do this special series because I love this time of year. It's magical. And it goes hand in hand with whiskey. And if there's one thing that is the perfect pairing between the Christmas season, the holiday season, and whiskey, it is the idea, the concept of a whiskey advent calendar. Now, here in BC, that's kind of hard to do because our esteemed government has taken it upon themselves to completely screw over the consumers by taxing the ever-loving crap out of miniature bottles, and therefore advent calendars are just really cost-prohibitive here. But it's okay, because we make do. You might not know this, but whiskey's not just my job. I love whiskey outside of work, and as such, I'm not just the founder of Whisky Folk, formerly the Dram Association, and I'm not just the local ambassador for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society here in Victoria. I'm also a member of several other local, completely independent clubs. And one thing that independent clubs can do is share their whiskey. And with that in mind, for the last few years, I've been doing something exactly in that. So our club called Dare to Dram, it started during the outbreak because, you know, we dared to dram. We'd leave little bottles of whiskey for each other on the doorstep. We started making our own advent calendars. So we'd club together our money, we'd buy 25 bottles of whiskey, we'd put them into little vials, and we'd all enjoy them together. And I'm doing that this year, and I'm organising it, and I thought you guys at home on YouTube might be interested in seeing what we all had. So this is my advent calendar. This is the Dare to Dram. Completely independent, completely separate to my professional work. But I think it'd be kind of cool to go through day by day and just have a wee chat about some of these whiskies. But before then, so part of this whole thing is it really is my words to live by. It's not whiskey until it's shared. It's all about sharing. And as much as I love sharing whiskey with people, I really also love it when people share whiskey with me. So I'm actually going to start off this series of videos trying a few samples that some of my friends have given me recently. And 3 of them I know what they are. One of them is a complete mystery, which is going to be interesting. And I haven't prepared notes. I have not tasted these at all before. I haven't prepared notes about distillery trivia or anything. This is just off-cuff remarks, a little bit of a review, a little bit of a insight into how I just enjoy whiskey sometimes. So yeah, let's put this. I'll tuck this down here. You'll be seeing this again tomorrow. Don't worry. December 1st, we'll have whiskey number 1. But I guess whiskey 0 or whiskey -1. I don't know. Let's start off with. Let's do this one. So we've got a couple from the same friend here. I'm not going to name any names. I don't want to embarrass people, or I don't want people that know them to be knocking on their door asking for some themselves. So it's a mystery where I got these from, as far as you guys are concerned. If you want to out yourself in your comments, you can. Yeah, this is a Glenmorangie 1971 22-year-old. So bottled, blimey, in 1993? That's. I don't want to think about how long ago that is because I was born in 88, so it's my age -5. Yeah, 43% old 1971 Glenmorangie. Like, how? Yeah, that's wild. I feel like I should be trying a modern Glenmorangie 22-year-old to compare this to, but of course, where the hell am I going to find a modern 22-year-old Glenmorangie? But I will save a little bit of this for Whiskey Bry when he comes to the festival, because I'm sure Brian will really be interested to try this. So I'm not going to be drinking all 4 ounces of these whiskies here on camera. I will be taking them home and enjoying them, quote unquote, more properly without an audience. But let's see what this Glenmorangie 1971 is like. That smells old. which is weird, because 22's not that old, but this smells like old G&M bottlings, you know? As far as I'm aware, this is a official bottling. I just managed to put a dribble of whiskey down the thing, which, of course, being alcohol, is going to erase the markings on it, but I'll try and not smudge it. 43% alcohol, yeah. Okay, so it's got this sort of cooked orange, like marmalade. Not fresh orange, but like a marmalade, or maybe like an orange infused pudding or dessert of some kind. And by pudding, I don't mean like black pudding. I mean like treacle sponge pudding, you know, like a hot cake. And it's got like a cinnamony thing on the nose as well. Honestly, on the nose, it almost smells like just a really, really good old bourbon. Got a lot of those flavor pointers that you look for. It's got sort of like harsh oak, sort of astringent, almost acidic thing going on for it. But then sort of soft vanillas underneath. That is lovely. That's very nice. If I was trying it blind, I wouldn't have a clue it was Glenmorangie, I've got to be honest. Not that I've had that many Glenmorangies, like, because I sort of tend to specialise in independently bottled stuff, some of the big names that don't really sell to independent bottlers, I don't get as much of an opportunity to try. So, as much as I've had thousands of whiskies in my time, I've probably only had, like, 20 Glenmorangie editions. Even though they are, you know, one of the best-selling, most popular single malts in the world. All right. Quite different on the palate. I'd love to know what kind of oak this is. Like, judging from the colour and the taste, I want to say it's a mix of bourbon and sherry. It's definitely got a lot of the bourbon characteristics, but it's also got this soft, almost European oak tannicness. Yeah, it's interesting. It's got a lot of them flavours that I associate with 1960s and 1970s whiskies, which by the time I try them are normally 50 years old. This is not 50 years old, but it has a lot of those flavours in common. So I'm wondering if there is something to be said for the way that the casks were treated back in those days. Because, yeah, I mean, I've always been a proponent of the idea that, you know, sherry casks these days are, you know, still really good quality, right? But yeah, I don't know. There might be something to the idea that casks were not better necessarily, but different back in the 70s and 60s, because this is really, really familiar from some of those older bottlings. But it's only 22 years old. It doesn't age in the bottle. Like, it's not got woodier since 1993. Blimey hell. That's really cool. All right. Well, that was delicious. On to the next one. What else we got? So from the same person, and I believe these were found in like a family member's attic or something, they also managed to find me a bottle of Highland Park 25 from the year 2000. So distilled 1975, maybe a little earlier than that, because, you know, it's probably not... it might be a single cask. It is 51.5% actually, so this might be a single cask Highland Park. From the mid-70s. Again, absolute unicorn of a bottling. I don't often get to taste things like this, which is such an honour. Alright, Slancher. Not off the bat, not as peated as I was expecting it to be. Highland Park usually has that sort of heathery, soft, woody peat on the nose. And that, straight off on the nose, I wouldn't even pick this as being peated. Yeah, no, I can't really smell any peat on that at all right now. So what I'm going to do is an old trick that Lawrence Graham taught me of splashing a little bit on my hand. just a tiny bit. You don't want to waste it. But a little bit, let the alcohol all evaporate off. Give it a nice big whiff. Oh, yeah. It's beautifully malty, but yeah, not peated. I can't smell any peat smoke on this whatsoever, which is really interesting. Of course, peat does dissipate with age, but I've had some older Highland Parks. I've had 19, 20, 21-year-olds quite recently that have had quite a decent amount of smoke left on them. So it shouldn't have completely dissipated by 25. I've had Highland Park 30 that's been peated. So I'm wondering if in the 1970s, Highland Park went through a period where they didn't peat any of their malt. Or maybe, because I know Highland Park does some whiskey with their own peated malt and some whiskey with unpeated malt and then blend it together. Maybe this is a cask of just the unpeated stuff. Maybe vatting it together before casking is a relatively new thing. Maybe previously in the 1970s, and it would have been easier to do so, maybe they actually made them separately and then blended them for their official bottlings later. I don't know. It's a mystery to me. A delicious mystery. Oh, very nice. Very cool. And I feel a little bit like some of my friends, because I'm the only person right now that knows what's in our advent calendar. So it's not going to be a surprise to me, but everyone else in the club's going to have 25 mysteries every day for the next 25 days, which is super cool. I'm getting my own little mini experience of that right now, because I know very little about this. All I've got to go on is Highland Park 25, bottled in 2000 at cask strength. I don't know who bottled it. I don't know what the casks were. I don't know the story behind them. And one of these I know absolutely nothing about. So the next one should be really interesting too. So this was given to me after our most recent whiskey showcase, because we had an Imperial, Gordon and MacPhail sherry cask Imperial. And one of the people there said that we actually had an Imperial before I started working at the Strath. We had an Imperial that we sold from the same year, I think, 1993. Potentially even from the same sort of batch, but from a bourbon cask, not a sherry cask. So they gave me a little sample from their bottle, which was super nice of them. So this is a, quick math, 18-year-old Imperial, bottled only at 43%. So G&M only more recently started doing more cask strength and higher proof editions. So 43 is kind of standard. I'm wondering if this was maybe a distillery labels edition rather than a connoisseur's choice. All right. Ooh, it's got a lot of colour on it for a apparent bourbon cask. Am I getting the age right here? 1993 to 2011. Yeah, that's 18. Right, yeah, that's 18. I'm fairly sure. Yeah, that's 18. So that's a lot of colour for an 18-year-old at only 43. I don't think G&M even then would have been dabbling with sort of colouring their whiskies, but that is quite something. So the nose is a little bit more restrained, a little softer than the last two. It's got a nice sort of grainy, bready note. And then some like soft berry notes, kind of like a field strawberry. You know, the little tiny ones you might see growing in the wild. It's got that little sort of vegetalness to it, but still sweet and berry-esque. Starting to hear the windstorming. Apparently we're getting some kind of typhoon or cyclone or something off the coast here tonight, so if the power suddenly goes out and I lose half this video, I might have to drink all these again. Ooh, poor me. Ooh. Oh, that's got some really nice sort of delicate tropical notes. Like, it's not as strong as something like a papaya or, you know, something like pineapple. It's almost more like star fruit. You know, if you've ever had a star fruit, where it's definitely got that tropical edge to it, but it's softer. It's not as aggressive. It's got an almost creaminess to it as well. I always think, my head always assumes that if I'm tasting tropical fruits and cream, then it must be banana that I'm tasting, but it's not. It's not banana. Ain't no bananas here. It's more like a mango pudding, I guess. A mango pudding served or just slathered over a slice of, like, brown bread. That's a very English thing, isn't it? What do we call brown bread? Whole grain, whole wheat bread. There's something about British, like, food. We just refer to things by their colour. It's white bread and brown bread. It's red sauce, brown sauce, and we've never called mustard yellow sauce. But if we had the weird North American mustard that you got here, maybe we would, because it's not the same. That's really nice. And I have to admit, I didn't really think I liked Imperial until recently. That sherry cask one really turned me onto it. And this has been excellent too. I must have had maybe just some lackluster Imperials before that. All right. And the finale, the one I know nothing about apart from the fact that it is a Gordon and MacPhail bottling, and it was poured for me specifically because one of my friends was visiting G&M in Speyside and had a sample of this and told the people at G&M that I would personally like this, and they just gave him a little bottle to bring home for me, which is super nice of, well, both parties. Yeah, so yeah, I'm intrigued. It's 57.1%, and it's just a straight up clean little sample bottle. No idea what this is yet. That's nice. So, smells like bourbon cask, looks like bourbon casks. Maybe single cask, maybe a vatting, I'm not sure. 57.1 usually would suggest it's probably a single cask with G&M. I don't think they normally would do a vatting of casks at cask strength. This is probably a connoisseur's choice range, or, well, maybe even a MacPhail's or something. I'm not sure. Could be. I have no idea whether this is a $100 whiskey or a $100,000 whiskey. I assume it's probably somewhere in between. Smells real nice, though. It's soft. It's got what I refer to as the peat shadow. So I can sort of smell the faint, distant idea of peat, but it's kind of, the smokiness is gone. It's left behind other notes. It's got like a coal dust almost. This actually smells a lot more like what I was expecting the Highland Park 25 to smell like. This could be Highland Park. I know G&M have done some Highland Park in the past. Yeah, that's got this sort of porridgey oatiness. It's very sort of rustic smelling. Oh, I wonder if it's maybe I'm being thrown off here. Maybe it's G&M, but it's not actually G&M, you know? Maybe it's a Ben Romach. I do love me a Ben Romach. I would not be surprised, actually, if this was one of the newer editions of the Ben Romach that are coming out. I managed to try some recently. I was at the launch of the Ben Romach 50. Fantastic whiskey, by the way. And I know that they have started releasing some G&M branded Ben Romachs that don't quite fit into the core line. Could this be a single cask Ben Romach, an old single cask Ben Romach? It definitely, if it's Ben Romach, that like that peat shadow kind of gives away a bit of an age. I would think this is at least 25, maybe 30 plus, depending on the distillery. Like if it was a PTO whiskey, say if this was, what else could it be? Highland Park, Ben Romach, could be maybe an Ardmore. If this was an Ardmore, I think it's older. Because Ardmore, the smoke is not that much smokier. It's like 25 ppm or something. So I think maybe a little less. Oh, I forget. But it's more than Ben Romach is. So to have that peat shadow, I think it would be older. Mmm. Holy. Wow. That is. Mmm. Wow. There's peat on the palate. There's peat on the palate. Oh, wow. That is absolutely astonishing. Giddy. All right. That is. Wow. Okay. So I just took a tiny, tiny sip. It felt like I had a mouthful of whiskey in there. That is so concentrated flavor, which again gives you the idea that it's probably on the older side. The flavors aren't strong, they're not harsh, but they're concentrated. They're big, complex ball of flavor. All right, see if I can put some words to the interesting things that are going on in my mouth right now. A lot of the flavors are like whiskey asterisk flavors. They're not food per se. They're other things that it's reminding me of, which again often comes with older whiskey. So I'm feeling twine. You know, like the smell of a ball of twine. And like the smokiness is interesting as well, because it's not like fresh smoke. It's not like I'm smelling a bonfire or even like smoked bacon or anything. It feels much more like a woolen blanket that was used to keep yourself warm at a bonfire about 3 years ago. There's a damp, almost earthiness to it, which again is a very much peat shadow thing. It's got this sort of almost fruity, acidic coffee bean thing going on for it. Leafy. It's leafy. What kind of leaves? I'm not entirely sure. It's herbal. It's herbal leafy. It's got that, not mintiness, but the zinginess that you get from like cilantro and things like that. It's fresh, but old. It's such a contradictory whiskey. I don't know what it is, but I'll tell you right now, if this was available for me to buy a full cask off for the Strath at a good price, I absolutely freaking would. All right, I've got to rip the Band-Aid out. I've got to find out what this is. All right, nice little handwritten note. Oh, ha! All right. Cool. So it is a Gordon MacPhail, 1987, so 1 year before I was born, Ardmore, 35-year-old. Ah. Cool. Refill American Hogshead. Refill. I mean, for 35, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. I thought I felt a bit more wood presence in a refill. Cask number 2898. The official tasting notes. Let's see how close I got. Lemon, I don't think I got that. Lime, nope. Floral, nope. On the palate, tropical fruit, coconut, oak. I definitely got the oak. On the finish, citrus fruit and vanilla. So yeah, I didn't really get the same kind of notes as the guys at G&M did, but that's the whole beauty of whiskey. Every single person that tastes a whiskey will have a completely unique and individual experience, which is why these videos, whilst they may be informational in terms of impressions of quality and information about the distillery and what kind of things to look for, you should never go to YouTube and just assume that you're going to have the same experience as the people talking to you from the other side of the camera. You're not. If you ever get a chance to try this whiskey, which, I mean, it's probably unlikely, it's probably pretty rare, you're not going to enjoy it exactly the same way I am. But I think you probably will enjoy it if you like the kind of flavors that I described. You might find other flavors in there, but as long as you didn't find anything that I mentioned off-putting in what you like in whiskey, you're probably going to like it. And that's the kind of approach that I recommend people take to reviews in general, not just on YouTube, but in general. If someone says it's going to taste like coconut and guava, like, that's not necessarily true. But you're going to taste things along those lines generally. The big things to look out for is if you're not a fan of smoke, did they say it was particularly smoky? If you're not a fan of big tannic sherry cask things, did they say it was big and tannic and sherry cask? You're never going to find the exact precise notes that someone else finds, but you will get in the same ballpark 9 times out of 10. I'm really looking forward to the next 25 days of releases. I'm not going to be recording a video every day. I'm going to be releasing a video every day, but you will notice that my clothes don't change that much. I'll be doing them in batches. So I will see you on the next video where I'll probably be wearing the same thing. Wow. It's beginning to smell a lot like Christmas. /var. See you on the next one.
Find your way